Cyberpunk 2077 may be over 4 years old at this point, but the game still has a ton of secrets and mysteries that are, as of yet, not fully solved. From enigmatic blue-eyed men to literal universe-breaking techno-cults, this world gets a whole lot weirder than it may at first seem. And it's already pretty bizarre from the get-go. So, let's take a look at 5 huge mysteries that to this day nobody can solve in Cyberpunk 2077. The Zen Master is the core enigmatic figure behind a series of quests around Night City involving braindance meditation sequences, first appearing in the gardens north of Embers, not far in fact from that region's FF06B5 statue. A relevant connection? Who knows, but we'll come to that mystery as well. As we approach the Zen Master, it kind of feels like he's already talking to us, able to pierce through the crowd to command our attention immediately.
It's hard to achieve peace if there is a demon never leaving.
And indeed, the Zen Master's words appear to pierce into our very soul as well, somehow understanding our situation without explicitly saying so.
You start to fade. You have no strong roots to this world. You are losing touch with yourself. You must purify yourself, regain your equilibrium. I can help you.
Losing touch? Fading? That does sound like what Johnny's doing to us, and the Zen Master claims that through his brain dances, we can temporarily shut out all technological influences and regain touch with the natural world. Kind of ironic that we're using brain dance tech to do so though, and that in doing so, we'll hear our voice, and only ours, without Johnny piping in. And so, the first of 4 meditations is over the earth elements. Who guesses what the other 3 are? And after we've sat around and stared at a forest for 2 minutes, the Zen Master is gone, for now. He reappears again later, elsewhere, claiming to have vanished before because someone else needed him, like some Night City superhero spreading peace, zen, and balance wherever he goes. And again, he treats us to a meditative brain dance, this time over water, and again, once done, the Zen Master is gone. He's next to appear on the roundabout in North Oak, and we quickly get to business, for fire this time, reflecting on how all these elements play their crucial roles within nature. Then, for the 4th and final meeting, the Zen Master says this:
There is not a soul on the earth who would wait for you as I have.
He also claims, potentially, to know about the 2 souls existing within us, and that he's apparently preparing us for the choice we'll eventually have to make. An interesting amount of knowledge for a random monk that can seemingly materialize anywhere. Our final meditation, though, is over the air elements and its lifting properties. And this time, when we leave the brain dance, the Zen Master is once again gone. Only, this time, leaving behind a few things: his robe, altar, and some standard shards exploring the nature and philosophy over the existence of the soul. So, we can confirm that the Zen Master has some physical grounding in the world, and that's an important detail. Also, look at Johnny's reaction after returning this time.
Fuck, I feel like a dog's shit.
Johnny, a digitized engram, feeling pain. Now, where have we seen that before?
What the? It's like someone shoved my head in a place.
Yeah, this is very reminiscent, or perhaps pre-niscent, of Johnny's response in Phantom Liberty, when Songbird shut him out on the relic. And indeed, it stands to reason that the Zen Master could be somehow influencing the relic as well. After all, how else would we shut out our inner voice that is Johnny? But I get the feeling a nature-focused guy wouldn't be using specific net-running skills in the same way Songbird does. And after repeated goes at these meditations, the Zen Master stresses how important continued honing of this skill is to success. Success meaning, I suppose, regaining control of our own consciousness, reconnecting with nature in order to somewhat hold back the tide of technology. Also, is the fact that Johnny seems confused when we mention the Zen Master, like he was indeed absent for the whole affair. Though, we can see reading the quest logs, which are written by Johnny, that he's not wholly oblivious to the Zen Master's existence. But he does suggest we go and talk to Misty about it. She confirms further that he isn't an enigma of our mind, but that others have seen him too. And indeed, there's an email on her computer from someone called Tinker, a guy who saw the Zen Master but didn't approach him, just watched on, confused confused why nobody else seemed to notice the guy. So it sounds as though the Zen Master does have some kind of power to only be seen by those he wishes to see him. It's not just Johnny he can hide from, but maybe he applies some sort of perception filter to other citizens too. Not out of the question, given everybody's cyber eyes in this world are actually just recreating a digitized image of reality like an AR headset, but we know that the Zen Master isn't purely an illusion, since he leaves behind his stuff. So who is he? Well, the radio DJ Maximum Mike, voiced by Mike Pondsmith, also has some idea here.
Recently, I've been hearing about this monk that's been walking around Night City streets, healing the sick, but only those he deems worthy. Some of my listeners seem convinced that it's none other than Raish Bartmoss. Raish Bartmoss. Yeah, you know, the guy, the chief architect of the net, and later its badass destroyer.
And then he goes into a theory about how Bartmoss could secretly be alive and roaming Night City still. Plausible, save perhaps to one who's found Bartmoss's deceased body in a fridge out in the Badlands scrapyards, dumped there 2 years prior after his lease ran out on a storage unit. Perhaps the Zen Master could be some digitized form of Bartmoss, but again, we've established his physical presence. A proxy then? Maybe, but why? Why would Bartmoss go from doing things big enough to have literal world-altering consequences to now simply appearing in the lives of the few and far between? I don't know. Personally, I buy more into the theory that the Zen Master is just an enigmatic monk. And wouldn't it be more interesting if his abilities derived not simply from net running like everybody else, but rather from a deeply rooted connection with nature, highlighting that this world has become so saturated with technology that one could almost step out of it merely by reconnecting with the roots that came before. It's an interesting one, and does tie in with a few more of the mysteries for this video. For starters, what intrigues Misty the most about the Zen Master is what would happen were she to take a reading of his tarot, with tarot cards themselves acting as a huge mystery across this game. If you thought that the Zen Master had an unnatural level of insight into this world, then the tarot cards become yet even weirder. 22 pieces of graffiti around Night City, 26 with Phantom Liberty, each representing one of the Arcana tarot cards with its accompanying specific meanings. It may seem like a simple find and collect side quest at first, but with a little digging, you'll realize that this quest runs bizarrely deep as well, and that lies in both where and when each card surfaces. For instance, the High Priestess, whose meaning can be associated with Hanako Arasaka, appears in the building where we first meet her. The full first card in the deck appears outside our apartments, and the final card, the World, appears right before entering into the ending of the game. I've explored the meanings behind all of the base game cards in this video, with the Phantom Liberty ones similarly sharing bizarre parallels and foreshadowing for that storyline. And indeed, my title, The Tarot Cards Tried to Warn You in Cyberpunk 2077, isn't just enticing clickbait. The cards are literally capable of foreshadowing all major events in the game, and when we approach Misty for a deeper meaning, she's able to accurately predict the events that are to come using these cards. Now, in real life, the coincidental accuracy of tarot readings can often be attributed to the open-endedness of the cards' descriptions. Their words can be interpreted in so many ways that something like wisdom may, like a rainbow, appear behind the multiple meanings, seemingly there but actually unattainable, and any meaning that tarot does hold can often be attributed simply to somebody wanting to believe in it, finding whatever patterns exist and using them to prove the point, ignoring all counter-evidence. But in Cyberpunk, things are a little different. We can check the validity of different readings by doing something we can't do in real life. We can travel in time, revert to different saves, and pursue multiple choices with multiple outcomes. Indeed, immediately after locking in to one of the game's many endings, Misty, in most cases, will offer another tarot reading, using these cards to predict the outcome with differing but always accurate results depending on the ending we chose. Suffice it to say that there is a meaning here. These cards somehow manifest with knowledge of events to come, and when you think about it, it at first seems to break the rules of this universe. So, let's look at the nature of these cards. For starters, we know that these visions of the graffiti around Night City aren't real. They're only visible to V and Johnny, and only after the heist, wherein the relic splits our soul in two. Misty believes that the cards are a sign from a higher power, whilst Victor offers the scientific view that it's a bleed of our subconscious caused by the biochip. Victor's theory makes sense, but it would kind of seem that only Misty's could account for the foresight. After all, if the tarot visions only come from within V, then how the hell are we subconsciously attributing meaning onto the walls around us that predicts our own future? Now, I've theorized before that these visions may take the form of tarot cards due to Jackie's use of the chip, perhaps having siphoned a faint echo of his subconscious onto it as he lay dying in the Delamain cab, dying thoughts of Misty that later manifest as tarot.
Misty, how does she know? She always knew.
Now, I actually love this theory, but it still doesn't explain the foresight itself, and the only thing I'd imagine would be capable in this world of extrapolating such accurate predictions as to what's going to happen is AI. AI from beyond the black wall, passing enough data moment by moment, accounting for the natural entropy of every atom in the universe to figure out what's going to happen next. Though this would perhaps imply that the universe doesn't in fact have all that much free will to begin with, that the ability of an individual to choose is an illusion, given that a machine can account for the actions of the many, and that runs entirely contradictory to V's choices across the game with differing outcomes. We know for a fact then that some free will, at least for V, does exist, but perhaps it isn't all that much. There are only like 6 set endings after all. So maybe then the cards exist to guide us towards the choices at play, highlighting to V specifically the certain events that have significance to give us a clue as to how maybe we should respond to different key parts of the story. Again though, who is behind this and why? I really wish there was a means by which to totally dismiss the mystical forces solution, placing it down to scientific phenomena, and if you can think of a way that that works, then please comment it below. Otherwise, we gotta put it down to some godlike entity with a mental degree of oversight across the entire world. Of course, gods and demons all exist inside the net here. So again, I think that is the least canon-breaking solution, an AI. Then again, maybe the Zen Master's been going around painting Night City with tarot graffiti and applying that same nature-based perception filter he has for himself. Though it doesn't necessarily explain how Johnny sees the cards though. No, I think on balance, it's probably the doing of AIs. And that also conveniently leads us on to the next mystery of the game anyway. Because the most prominent AI in the entire game is without a doubt Alt Cunningham. I know Phantom Liberty delves into this concept of AI a whole lot more, but as far as mysteries go, I think Alt Cunningham's true intentions and motivations for helping us are absolutely worth taking a look at. In the base game, which I did a full summary of not too long ago if you want to bookmark that for a recap at some point, Alt Cunningham is someone, or something, that the Voodoo Boys desperately want to make contact with, believing that to get on side with the AIs will put them on the winning team for the war that is to come. And as far as anyone is concerned, the way to contact Alt is to wave the engram of her deceased rocker boy ex, Johnny Silverhand, in front of her proverbial digitized face. And it's a tactic that we make work, eventually. We bring Johnny's engram to beyond the black wall, and Alt jumps out to meet him, owing a debt of sorts after he released her from Arasaka's prison of souls, Makoshi, over 50 years ago. And it would seem from the outset that Alt's efforts in helping V thereafter are merely done out of an obligation to pay that debt, nothing more. A pretty human response if you ask me, and one that entirely glosses over the gains that the Alt AI can obtain from this partnership. See, Alt's plan is to separate V and Johnny, pull apart our messily blended souls back to two distinct entities, letting us return to our body as its sole occupants. But to do that, we'll first need to become an engram too, and only in cyberspace is she capable of carrying out this delicate operation. And conveniently, the only place where we can be turned into an engram is a Makoshi access point, a digital doorway to Arasaka's soul prison where Alt was once housed herself. By her lonesome, Alt can no longer break back into Makoshi. She explains they literally have a block of ice security with her name on it, and she's a known threat from beyond the black wall to them now. The only way she can get inside now is by gaining access to Arasaka's subnet directly, from a physical access point found in the world. So we can carry a shard via the physical world to said access points, enabling her to effectively bypass their security and gain access to Mikoshi directly. All as a charitable act, of course, to facilitate our salvation, apparently. Now, up until this point, Alt appears entirely as this mysterious, even benevolent figure, offering sage advice and merely alluding to but not really using her deep levels of power. Kinda like Gandalf, I suppose. But it's when we get her inside Arasaka that Alt's true nature becomes utterly apparent. She slaughters every employee on the subnet, security personnel and unarmed alike. A few even tried to escape in a van in one timeline, only for Alt to blow it up with them inside. Now, perhaps it's safest to simply leave none here alive, but we do also undoubtedly see the workings of a vengeful god. Once a woman whose own technology was turned against her and used to imprison her in a digital hell. Now, taking her opportunity for revenge only against those merely guilty of associating with the corporation that did this to her. She clearly has absolutely no regard for the body toll by the end of this, though admittedly nor did V ever, or Johnny, or many of the protagonists we so admire and love, so that by itself is not enough to justify Alt as a malevolent evil entity, but it does show off the magnitude of her power some more. The mystery, I suppose here, is more what such an entity will do once she has access to Mikoshi. You see, Alt doesn't merely use this place once inside to solve our problem. No, she destroys it, taking with her every digitized soul that could be called a person, absorbing their code into herself and venturing back out into the net to become something more. Now, presumably not just Alt Cunningham, but also the amalgam of hundreds more saved personalities and memory banks. That will include Saburo Arasaka, alongside any celebrity or billionaire afraid enough of dying to take this option to potentially live forever. I think a large element that already sets Alt apart from other AI constructs is the fact that she used to be human, and whilst now something radically different, that aspect to her does still show on occasion. For instance, during For Whom the Bell Tolls, the rogue ending path, Johnny gets another chance to speak to Alt, and the amount that she'll choose to converse with him actually depends on a couple choices we made and how nice we were to Alt during Johnny's earlier flashback with her. And this suggests two things. Firstly, that Alt does still hold human grudges, treating Silverhand accordingly to how he treated her back in life. Second though, Johnny's flashbacks are largely lies. There's a definitive history to what happened in this world back then, and we don't change that merely by experiencing these dream sequence flashbacks. We can only change how Johnny remembers the events. Now, this would suggest that Alt doesn't remember these events at all. She's merely looking at Johnny's memories and taking them as gospel to regain a deeper understanding as to how the two used to be. Her judgment is informed by Johnny's memories. And this, I think, may actually explain why Alt was willing to approach Silverhand and talk to us in the first place. She was curious enough about her own past as to approach anything or anyone that could grant her insight to it, regardless of the risk. Alt wants to remember what it was like to be human, and if we take just the Johnny event by itself, it seems merely sentimental. She's curious about her past, same as one who takes an ancestry DNA test. But if we then look at what she does next, absorbing Mikoshi, and by extension the very human data of hundreds of other people, her intentions begin to appear a little more sinister, because it's no longer just herself she's wanting data on, but humanity in general. And why would an AI want to learn more about us? At worst, it'd be to conquer, and there's clear evidence that at least some of the Blackwall AIs are planning this very thing. The AI we retrieve from Cynosure in Phantom Liberty insists we graft it onto a piece of weaponry, posing as a gift simply to bolster our power immensely via the Kanto Cyberdeck or Erebus SMG, both of which I have rankings and builds for in other videos, by the way. But it's thanks to this clearly evil AI that we can learn Alt probably doesn't want to simply conquer and destroy humanity. She warns us, in fact, against using AI weaponry because of the fact that it's gathering data on us, with which it can more quickly take over our world. But if Alt doesn't want humanity dead, then she's, what, Our ally? I don't know about that. She kills without mercy with complete disregard for most individuals. No, rather I think she's somewhere in between, with ultimate plans for the future of her very own. I don't think she plans to destroy humanity, but nor does she want us to remain the same either. And in the quest changes, V is offered a choice: enter the well and return to their body, or cross the bridge into cyberspace to become something new somewhere else. If we ask Alt what we should do, then surprise surprise, she's of one opinion.
You should come with me.
So I think her plan, probably, in the long run, is to bring humanity as a whole into this new realm, rescue us from the physical world before it's destroyed by the non-hybrid AIs. And if you think about it, Soulkiller, the ability to digitize a human psyche, was Alt's invention. No doubt, even back when making it, she had considered the long-term future applications for such tech. And once becoming more machine than woman, it only makes sense, from a machine perspective anyway, to do away with such vices as mortality, hunger, illness, and more, and to upgrade the incredibly slow human brain to something with variable processing speeds.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. I craved the strength and certainty of steel.
That's the Adeptus Mechanicus from Warhammer 40k, but could just as well be an Adam Smasher quote, to be fair. So it's a mystery still, of course, just what Alt Cunningham's true intentions are, but I think carrying out some sort of mass human AI synthesis isn't necessarily that far from the mark. What's more, there are reasons both for and against allowing this to happen, especially with the added additional pressure of another AI faction hellbent on utterly destroying us too. I don't know, I think it would make an awesome plot point for a sequel, rife with multiple AI antagonists with differing degrees of evil. But what do you think Alt Cunningham truly wants here? Let me know in the comments. And I think with all this talk of aspiring to the purity of the blessed machine, it's time to discuss upgrading your blessed machine. Cyberpunk's graphics have become stupidly good lately, achieving high-on photorealism thanks to modding. And with Apex gaming PCs, you can choose from a huge range of custom-built machines, perfectly balanced between your desired budget and benchmarks. Models like the Apex Streamer are not only great for gaming and, well, streaming, but they look aesthetically awesome too. Plus, with Apex, you can split the cost over 6 months at 0% interest, which is always nicer than paying in full and doesn't cost a penny extra. So check out their range in my link down below. And don't forget to use my code SAM for a flat 10% off as well. Okay, now we're on to the big ones, the definitive Goliath mysteries of Cyberpunk 2077. Both very different by nature, but potentially connected, it remains unclear. And this next one, I think, was largely born, or at least developed, off of its own hype. I'm talking, of course, about FF06B5. Ever since the game released, there have been a number of these mysterious statues littered about Night City, containing a bizarre sort of circuitry emblem, and in some cases a code at the base, FF06B5. Which also just happens to be the hexadecimal code for magenta. And for years, that was the only real thing people had to go off. What are these statues, and why do they say FF06B5? What does it all mean? And when enough people have the same question, they get together and make a subreddit. Thus, r/FF06B5 was born, and for the next 2 and a bit years, ideas were thrown around back and forth, many of which were interesting, but none actually leading anywhere or unlocking further discoveries in-game. That was until patch 2.0, which released more or less in line with Phantom Liberty. I think it was a case of CDPR noticing the hype that had developed, the huge mystery it had erupted into, and decided, because I think they've proven time and again now that they do love us, to turn it into something far bigger. Now, I chronicled the unraveling of these clues as it happened in real time across my FF06B5 series, so I'll be brief on the solution here. We want to delve more into what this whole thing really means in the wider Cyberpunk universe today. Because even despite now actually being able to reach the end of the bread trail, it definitely leaves even more questions than answers. So, down in a hut amidst the Biotechnica farms sits a small shack owned by a conspiracy theorist, part of an FF06B5 investigative community mirroring the one that developed in real life. There's a computer throwing around even more dead-end theories as to what this all means, save for one thing that seems to be leading somewhere. An old arcade game, Arasaka Tower 3D, seems at first like nothing more than a fun Wolfenstein clone, but by solving an Easter egg within this through somewhat convoluted means, which I've explained before, the arcade machine somehow recodes itself to switch on these 8 terminals set up in the shack. Each of these then require inputting the correct code, and the solution to this is where things got really meta. Now, out in the Badlands junkyard, there's a very unique laptop which, when interacted with, flashes up a cipher in Elder text. This was eventually translated into a secret numerical code, which again I've explained how it was reached in another video. Though it's effectively a key, a means by which to translate Elder text ciphers into hexadecimal and eventually decimal codes. The necessity of this becomes clear when trying to figure out what the 8 codes are to unlock these terminals. The solution to which is not actually found in Cyberpunk at all, but rather The Witcher 3, intrinsically tying CDPR's 2 IPs together in a more meta way than ever seen before. In a years later patch for The Witcher 3, after the original FF06B5 mystery had taken off in 2077, though before the solution had come out, this wall marking was added along with a new building in The Witcher 3. The Ouroboros snake on it then matches the one on the laptop, so that's a big helpful clue. And the 8 bits of Elder text written in and around it are, in a clockwise, inwardly spiraling order, translatable to the codes needed for the 8 terminals. If that's all giving you a headache, then don't worry. It does the same to me every time I explain it. The important thing is that unlocking these terminals provides a key piece of data to the central laptop, a location also out in the Badlands that we now need to head to, before AFKing on a mattress for several minutes. This will trigger a bizarre series of hallucinations and all-round trippy set of events. We get the same Ouroboros image, then a static TV displaying an oscillating number, though one that settles on the fine structure constant, a very important number that enables pretty much the whole of physics to work in the way that it does. After this, it's then nighttime, and we're stood in front of a floating, flashing yellow cube that is itself made of scannable QRs. There's also a magenta moon up in the sky, but awakening now in the day again, someone is standing over us. The guy from the shack who figured this out originally, named Polyhister. We fall asleep again, and next time we wake up, the guy is gone. Literally. He seemingly set up some equipment around where the QR orb was and teleported? Disintegrated? Zero-summed? It's not fully clear, but one thing that is his clothes are still there. Now, where have we seen that before? Oh yeah, back in chapter 1 with the Zen Master. So, is the Zen Master actually privy to the same knowledge unlocked by pursuing the FF06B5 mystery? Let's find out. But firstly, Polyhister had a laptop, and logged his experience of the whole event, including finding us passed out at the scene. He also refers to the QR orb as a window, lending credence perhaps to the notion that it took him somewhere else. Though, the most insightful part of all of this is his description of the room he sees, looking through this window, within which is a person looking at a screen, watching through it him, and later on the whole of Night City. The watcher seemingly then becomes aware of Polyhister watching them, and looks directly back at them. And shortly after this, Polyhister proclaims to understand, in a short farewell declaring an ending, in past, present, and future tense. Something ends. Will end, has ended. Farewell. Like I said, this whole thing opens up way more questions I think than it does answers, and I'd be very surprised if this mystery wasn't developed further in future titles. If anything, I think CDPR just can't resist fucking with us with this, especially those prone to analyze too deeply into things.
You'll follow this breadcrumb trail, and when you connect the dots, all you'll see is a dick.
In fact, I know that they do, thanks to the message we can get by correctly scanning the QR displayed by that all-powerful yellow window cube thing, where, among much else, it refers to all you seekers and fools finding patterns where there are none, creating order out of chaos, explaining that this isn't the first time we've met, and it won't be the last. In fact, it wasn't the last FF06B5 clue we were given even now. Patches after this, the terminal by the FF06B5 statue in City Center there now lights up with this hand symbol, with 6 fingers, circuitry, and again, that yellow cube. Man, it even frickin' glows magenta. And there might even be more now, as of the 2.2 update. If anything else is found before I finish this video, then I'll add an addendum. And if I'm saying this, then I guess nothing was found. So I'll add a pinned comment if it ever is. Anyway, back to the core of this mystery, and we ultimately wind up with a monster truck named Demiurge. That's also the name of who would be the creator of the physical universe and the laws that govern it, i.e. the fine structure constant that underpins the laws of physics. So that could be the same god that Misty alludes to, displaying the tarot graffiti and foreshadowing our journey through Night City. Then again, it could just be a cool name for a monster truck. Further to that, we can find the body of another member of this FF06B5 conspiracy group, Tyromancer, who actually dropped the Ouroboros laptop where we find it in the Badlands. And he claims that this whole thing is actually a window to some truths, claiming that life itself as we perceive it to be is in fact a total lie. There really is a whole lot of stuff that begins to unpack as you dig deeper into this, though I think the underlying notion that this appears to put across could help explain many of the other mysteries of this video. For instance, if a godlike entity is watching Night City from the sidelines and FF06B5 is some underlying homage to that, I would suspect once again that such a being would most likely be an all-powerful AI, rather than a fantastical god. Then again, there is a theory, posited on the radio by Maxim and Mike, that the net is in fact literal hell, and that Bartmoss didn't even invent it, but that he discovered it. Hey, maybe FF06B5 ties into that, and Cyberpunk is chronicling how through technology, humanity begins to unlock secrets that ancient civilizations sort of knew about but couldn't properly explain. And perhaps indeed the AI demons are actually just kind of literal demons. Or perhaps not. After all, Night City already has a shady organization of seemingly boundless power pulling various strings from behind the scenes. And that brings us on to the final, unsolved mystery of this video. Now, there's no way we could discuss huge unsolved mysteries without of course looking at Mr. Blue Eyes. I feel like I can't say mystery nowadays in fact without saying Mr. Blue Eyes in the same sentence. He just kind of is the cyberpunk mystery. Now, I won't dive into tons of detail this time, I already have a whole video over an hour long doing that, so instead I want to look more into how Mr. B could tie into the sort of potential overarching connections explored across this video. So who is Mr. Blue Eyes? Well, if I could answer that, then he wouldn't be on this list, but we do have a ton of info and clues around the topic, at least. Now, Mr. Blue Eyes can at first be seen at the end of the Dream On Perales questline, where we discover the future mayor of Night City and his wife are secretly being controlled by a shady organization that's rewriting their personalities and even their very memories. It's part of something codenamed Project Condon, and seems to be a plot to subtly control certain influential figures without them even realizing, to allow this shady organization to secretly control Night City. Who is this shady organization? Well, it's probably Night Corp, given they are also a shady company whose one goal is to make Night City great again. And they similarly have projects on the go to subtly influence and control the minds of their employees. It all neatly unifies, actually, when you look at it closer. Though this all seems to have a darker side in its further associations with Maelstrom, or rather a specific branch of Maelstrom, even more cultish than the rest, seemingly hell-bent on raising, maybe summoning, an AI named Lilith. Now again, if the idea of the net being literal hell is intriguing to you, then this stokes that fire massively. Biblically, Lilith was the first wife of Adam, but she was banished from the Garden of Eden for refusing to submit to Adam's will, and thereafter often being portrayed as a demon. Could this be the Lilith, having now existed in the rediscovered realm of the net for untold aeons? And why then would she seek to return to the physical world, to feel blood course through silicon, as is told through the bloody ritual Cyberpsycho sighting? The whole thing gets a little iffy here, but again I delve into it far more in the big Mr. Blue Eyes video. Back to him though, and Mr. B also takes a keen interest in space, cropping up a couple times either prominently or in the background for a couple quests involving the moon and Crystal Palace, though I think that's likely more an interest in the advanced scientific facilities on the moon and the immense wealth wealth at the Crystal Palace, all things that could bolster his power and control further. Indeed, I believe it even possible that the mass surveillance hinted to be taking place through the FF06B5 Easter egg could even just be Mr. Blue Eyes and Night Corp, watching the goings-on of Night City through cameras to know exactly where and when it's necessary to intervene. A literal example of this is of course seen at the Perales apartments. And could Mr. Blue Eyes be behind the tarot graffiti or the Zen Master? Perhaps. And you could theorize that the tarot art is even a helping hand to guide us towards the ending where we help Mr. Blue Eyes directly. Though that feels like a bit of a stretch. Again, with the Zen Master though, I do really like the idea that he is an entity unto himself. Separate, more so because of his deep connection to nature than anything else. Plus, the Zen Master's goal appears to be to help liberate us, whereas far as we can tell with Mr. Blue Eye's wider organization, he is hellbent more so on control. And not straight up tyrannical and oppressive control exactly, but more the ability to control people without them realizing it. To rewire their opinions and memories to fashion Night City ultimately into a smoothly running and productive place utterly devoid of crime, suffering, and free will. Yeah, that last bit doesn't sound great, though to be fair, things ain't exactly great in 2077 either. And there's no doubt a path through which you can make Night City a better place whilst maintaining the free will of the people, but Mr. B's way, I guess, would be easier and more definitive. And perhaps in a sequel, we'll even see more steps of his plan unfold through the narrative. I can't wait. But for now, there's plenty still to ponder on each of these 5 huge unsolved mysteries, with evidence to be looked at and theories to be discussed. So please start some threads in the comments down below and do discuss your thoughts and findings. A huge thank you as always to the patrons for going the extra mile to support the channel, and thank you for your patience whilst I sort out some life stuff. I haven't been as on it with uploads lately, I know, but that's all set to change as we go into the new year. So subscribe for more on Cyberpunk and other RPGs that I cover. Thank you for watching, I'm Bram, and I'll see you in the next one.